obviously I want to be better, for this team, for this organization, just taking care of the ball in some crucial parts of the games. That's the NFL, man. It comes down to it. You're not going to just blow teams out every week. You take care of the ball and you got to play good team football. And, that's where I'm at with that. But in terms of, you have 3 losses, and as a quarterback, you take a lot. I take that on myself, where I could be better for this team and helping us win. To have a loss like that, it hurts. Now we have to wait 14 days to play our next game for our next shot, our next opportunity, and it hurts. We have a bad taste in our mouth. But at the same time, it's like, man, this is going to be a good time for us to do some reflection, and I think all of us are really hungry for the second half and this stretch that's about to go down. So we'll be ready for it.
Of a little start or sit, and that was Brock Purdy talking about the upcoming matchup out of the bye week against Jacksonville. So we will start right there with Brock Purdy. I mean, the question right now here, Barry, after 3 straight games with 1 or fewer touchdown passes, is Purdy still a startable quarterback for you?
He is, and you know what I'm going to do, what's your name? Connor. I was going to say James because James Conner or Connor.
Sure. Whatever you got to talk through.
I missed the pre-show meeting where we introduced ourselves. Connor, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to keep it open. Yeah. That's the premise of the segment. Connor forgot to mention that. I
intro it every single time while you're on your phone. Every single week you're on your phone, I intro the segment.
But you know what you should do?
What should I do?
What should you do? You should go.
I don't know. I honestly don't know what else I could do.
You should tap me and get me off of my phone.
No.
I'm dealing with stuff behind the scenes. I'm moving and shaking.
But 1 out of every 20, you bring some injury news to the table. So out of that 1 out of 20%, I have to let it go because you might be like, the Fantasy Life app, Justin Fields is playing Thursday night.
Now you done said it. He don't have to say it now because you already said it.
Exactly. I'm keeping it open.
All right. Good.
I'm keeping it open. Here's the thing on Brock Purdy. I'll give you some stats here. First up, we expect out of the bye the 2 things that were missing prior to no Trent Williams, no Deebo Samuel. Both guys should be back, right? I mean, Trent Williams very important, obviously, for that offensive line. I think he's still the best left tackle in football. Deebo getting back, that will help as well. It's a decent matchup against the Jags, who allow the 3rd most passing yards per game, 6th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks as well. They have a good defense, but it's not like an impenetrable defense as well. And so, for me, Brock Purdy, he comes in at QB 11 for me. I'm going to trust in the system. I'm going to trust that they took the bye week to get everything right. I'm a believer in Kyle Shanahan. Give me Brock Purdy as a top 12 play today, or this week, I should say. I'm keeping it open. Connor Rogers.
Lawrence, where does Purdy come into your rankings?
You should be trusting the system. I got him at quarterback 14. That's still borderline quarterback 1. I'm keeping it open.
In a 14-team league,
Yeah. And in a 16-team league,
yes,
too. And in a
20-team league.
Jacksonville has allowed
smiling somewhere.
Jacksonville has allowed a 300-yard passer in 3 of their last 4 games. Some of those quarterbacks, Derek Carr, Gardner Minshew, and Josh Allen did that, of course. So you see what Brock Purdy was able to do against the Bengals. He threw for 365 there. He just had the interceptions with it. He takes away those interceptions this week against the Jags. We keeping it open.
I think the sneaky thing with Brock Purdy as well is he carried the ball 6 times for 57 yards against the Bengals, and he had this run the week prior against the Vikings where he ran it for 17 on the outside. And it was like this flashbulb moment. I was like, is Brock Purdy really fast? And it felt like Kyle Shanahan kind of leaned into that against the Bengals. And so I think that adds another dimension as well, the fact that he can tuck it and run. But the main thing is that he was playing like an MVP candidate against the Vikings. Then he gets concussed on the QB sneak and he throws 2 picks. He's playing amazingly against the Bengals. Then his head hits the turf. He reaches for his head, a really bad hit. Then he throws 2 picks. So I don't know, maybe just concussions are really bad and he shouldn't be playing football with a concussion. And he came back after 6 days of the concussion against the Vikings. So I think Brock Purdy will be fine, and I think he'll be back to a startable quarterback.
Our next one here, and James Cook, who we've talked a lot about on this show lately, not even because Leonard Fournette was signed to the practice squad, but just for James Cook's usage, Jay, and his production going downhill as well. Barry has him as RB21 this week because he does have the Broncos.
Yeah, it's a favorable matchup against the Broncos. Now, all the Broncos' stats are skewed because they gave up, 8 touchdowns to Devin Achane and Raheem Mostert and 1,000,000 yards, but they have turned the corner a little bit. Yep. Still, James Cook, he's the number 1 running back for now unthreatened by Latavius Murray and Leonard Fournette in a Josh Allen offense, an offense that is still elite. And I think the fact that they only scored 18 against the Bengals, like Dalton Kincaid fumbled, they had more points there for them. This is a top 5 offense in the NFL, and James Cook is still its number 1 running back. So for me, I'd be keeping it open on James Cook.
Barry, single-digit fantasy points in 4 of his past 5 games. Can you see some kind of rebound here?
Not really. Like, again, I'm a running back 21. So I think he's a flex play this week. When you think about the guys that are on bye or they're banged up, and he's going to get 12 to 14 touches on a very good offense. So he's a flex play. But I will tell you that I'm in it. Ideally, you're using a wide receiver in your flex, assuming you're playing PPR or half PPR. Like, I'll just tell you, like, in one league, I'm in a 12-team half PPR league with all my college buddies, and my top 3 running backs in that league are Ken Walker, Aaron Jones, and James Cook. It's a keeper league. And I'm starting Jones and Walker this week, and I'm using a wide receiver at my flex spot because I don't want to deal with James Cook, who's played under 60% of the snaps in 3 of the last 4 games. He has only 33% of the Bills' touches inside the 10-yard line this entire season. And you mentioned, Jay, I think you bring up a great point about how all the metrics on the Denver defense are completely skewed by that crazy 70-point Miami game. Last 4 weeks, the Broncos are top 12 in terms of fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs. So they've actually played better. They shut down Isaiah Pacheco. Like, they played better. They're coming out of the bye as well. So Cook, again, to your point, Connor, about, the single-digit fantasy points and for the past 5, I'm closing it out on him, but I'd get it if you use him as a flex. Again, I haven't ranked as a flex play, but I'm ideally looking elsewhere if I can and not using him this week.
Lawrence, do you think we're inching closer to Leonard Fournette factoring into this backfield?
100%. And it's because, James Cook isn't having these blow-up games. He hasn't had 15 carries in a game since week 3, and he's not getting that type of receiving usage like a Rashad White or an Alvin Kamara. If he got that, you could get by. I'm going to close it out this week for that reason. You guys mentioned that Denver's defensive rushing stats are kind of messed up by the Dolphins going off of them. Not only they shut down Pacheco twice within 3 weeks.
That's correct.
They stopped Green Bay, from running the ball on them. And I just think, the Denver team as a whole is just playing better. So I'm going to keep it closed this week in part because Leonard Fournette, he coming.
Right. Like, when he's not scoring touchdowns, he's not catching passes, you're just sort of like, what?
What do you do here?
What do you do there? You're hoping for a big play.
Maybe it's a stupid comment, but Connor, is he just not that fast? Like, he just doesn't seem super explosive.
He's always been quicker than fast.
Yeah. He doesn't seem to break these big explosive runs. It's always just grinding out 5-6 yard carries when it goes well.
And they're not an overly effective running team. It's just not their DNA.
Never has been. With Josh Allen there. Don't understand that.
No,
and that's why they brought in Leonard Fournette.
And they have a good O-line this year. So I don't get it.
It's weird, but you know what? I mean, it used to be just sort of Stephon Diggs and then Josh Allen do something crazy, but now we've seen some Gabe Davis. Obviously, we've seen Dalton Kincaid emerge. They now have more weapons. They don't need to rely on him as well. It's been a tough couple of weeks for the Cook brothers.
Lawrence, we talked a lot about, with Jahan Dotson, how often the Commanders throw, but for Brian Robinson, as much as that's caused his volume to go down, he has scored in 2 of his last 3 weeks. Is this one that you can keep open?
No, I'm still going to close it out. He's touchdown or bust, and it's crazy to think that he could score a touchdown, and there's a possibility he still may not get you double-digit fantasy points. In Week 9, it was the first time he had more than 10 carries since Week 4. Seattle is allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs over the past 3 weeks, but again, I think this is going to turn into a situation where Commanders are doing what they do, throw the ball. I'm closing it out.
He scored to your point, Lawrence, he scored last week against the Patriots, right? He got a touchdown. And he ended the week with 12.7 fantasy points. He was running back 22. Even with a touchdown, he was outside the top 20.
Tough,
and that was against New England, a game in which Washington not only won, but was in the game the entire way. It wasn't like they had some crazy comeback that was all they did throw a ton, but like they were never being blown out by the Patriots. Now they go to Seattle, which prior to last week, the Seahawks were averaging to 3.1 yards per carry to running backs. Just a bad day at the office for the Seahawks on the road at Baltimore. But now Seattle's back home in Washington State. And so, I don't know. The problem with Robinson is they're not using him in the pass game. We saw some flashes of that beginning of the year, but that's evaporated. It's been more Antonio Gibson in the passing game, and they are throwing a ton. They actually lead the NFL in pass rate this season, over 70% of the time they're throwing the ball. So Robinson, who has under 15 touches in 6 of the past 7 to me, I'm closing it out. I have it running back 27. He needs a touchdown to even be viable because without a touchdown, he's averaging 8.4 fantasy points per game. I love the kid, as you know. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. It's an unbelievable story, but just the way this offense is going in this matchup on the road at Seattle, it's hard for me to trust him in fantasy this week.
Our next one, Jay, Chuba Hubbard. He's got 37 touches in his past 2 games, but Chicago's defense that has been good against running backs in fantasy, they also add in Montez Sweat to the fold right now. This is a tough, short week for Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah, closing it out on Chuba Hubbard. I don't know how this has happened, but the Bears have the single most efficient run defense in the NFL and the second least efficient pass defense. So if ever there was a pass funnel team, and look, Bryce Young's probably not going to drop back to throw 50 times, but maybe he should. And so I think that with Hubbard, the fact that I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball, the fact that Miles Sanders is getting back involved, Matthews' man, Raheem Blackshear, even got a carry against Indianapolis. So I'm closing it out on Chuba Hubbard.
No running backs ran for more than 35 yards or scored a rushing touchdown in 3 straight games against the Bears. And those running backs was Alvin Kamara, Austin Eckler, and Josh Jacobs, all much better players at this point than Chuba Hubbard. I'm closing it out.
I'll also close it out here. You know, one concern is these short weeks. This is anecdotal, but you saw my
Getting through the popcorn.
No, we don't.
yeah, it's
Pushing
popcorn week.
through.
Colonel gets stuck in
I thought
it.
Lawrence had one more sentence in him, so I was gonna, I mistimed that.
I did it on purpose.
Keep him on his
Very
toes.
down.
I knew you were gasping.
down.
You're smart. Here's what I'll say. I feel like this is more anecdotal than anything, but just on those short weeks, after a big, Hubbard got a decent workload last weekend for the Carolina Panthers. You saw Miles Sanders get more involved than he was the week before. And so on a short week, after a big workload, I feel like you see Miles Sanders more involved this week than he was last week just because Hubbard got so much work. And again, it's just such a quick turnaround for running back specifically as well. I mean, he's had 37 touches the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, certainly we saw that I remember when the Niners played the Giants on Thursday night. It's like, oh, welcome in Elijah Mitchell. Christian McCaffrey, you can, play 70% or whatever, and then Mitchell gets some carries.
Right.
Jay, our next one in Hollywood Brown, under 8 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games, but we know the story here is that he's got his guy back in Kyler Murray.
Yep, he'll be the number 1 receiving option for Kyler Murray, who is an elite fantasy quarterback, and they will be throwing. Falcons also have a really good rushing defense too. So, I mean, Josh Dobbs was able to attack them through the air, not knowing any of his teammates' names or any of the plays. So I suspect that Kyler Murray will be able to take advantage of Marquise Brown, so I'm keeping it open there.
Nice matchup with the Falcons as well as over the last 4 weeks. Atlanta allowing the 6th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I think they move them around enough to avoid A.J. Terrell as well. And to your point about just getting a ton of looks, 40% target share last week. He's got an almost 30% target share for the season. He's got a 28% target share on the year. Just to give you some comparisons, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 28% target share. Adam Thielen, 28% target share. Like, that's the kind of volume Marquise Brown has seen this entire year in that offense, and now he's finally got, a superstar quarterback throwing him the ball. So, yeah, I'm keeping it open on Hollywood Brown. He's going to make my love list and others receiving votes when that comes out later this week. And it's worth noting, by the way, as we talked about at the top of the show, James Conner, we're hoping he gets back as well. Prior to the injury, he was averaging almost 14 fantasy points per game, basically 17 touches a game. An effective run game will help open up things for Kyler Murray in that passing offense as well.
For George Pickens, only 3 receptions in his past 2 games. And Lawrence, really since Deontay Johnson has been back, Kenny Pickett also has had his struggles of his own. George Pickens' production has fallen off in this offense.
I'm going to close this one out as well on Pickens. Deontay Johnson's back, and he's not just back, he's consistent. Had games of 79, 85, and 90 receiving yards. Furthermore, the Packers' defense has only allowed 6 receiving touchdowns this year to wideouts, and I just don't see, this Pittsburgh offense is the type of offense where, we going out there and starting 2 receivers for fantasy. You want to start the receiver and the one that they manufacture targets for, and that's Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, Jay, it just seems like it's an offense that can only maintain 1 productive fantasy receiver right now.
Yeah, particularly when I don't think Tomlin wants to overexpose Kenny Pickett, and they will run the ball if there is a game script to be able to do that. And Deontay Johnson, he's clearly asserted that he is the guy in this offense.
I've closed it out as well. He's my wide receiver 34. Also a tough matchup. Packers' sixth fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers this year.
Back to Thursday Night Football, Matthew. DJ Moore against the Panthers, of course. DJ Moore, 3 straight games under 60 receiving yards, but you probably have to roll with the level of talent he has, and maybe the return of Justin Fields helps.
Yeah, look, we talked about this earlier in the show. Again, certainly DraftKings, given the line, DraftKings expects Justin Fields to play. We expect Justin Fields to play. We'll find out if that's official, but assuming Justin Fields, who I have ranked this week as a top 10 fantasy quarterback, assuming Justin Fields is starting on Thursday night for Chicago, I'm keeping it open on DJ Moore. I have him at wide receiver 25. Look, whether it's Justin Fields or Tyson Bagent, he's had a 24% target share, at least 6 targets in 7 out of the 9 games so far this year for DJ Moore. So revenge game for DJ Moore against the Carolina Panthers. You know he wants to show up and show his former team, hey, this is what it looks like when I get into the end zone. I know you never threw it to me when I was in the end zone when I was here, but this is what it looks like. So, yeah, give me DJ Moore. I'm keeping it open on DJ.
Wide receiver 46 since losing Justin Fields. He was wide receiver 4 with Justin Fields. So with the expectation that Justin Fields will be back, we will keep it open, yes, on DJ Moore. Big game coming if Justin Fields is back.
To recap, keep it open, close it out with Barry's rankings involved here. Brock Purdy comes in as QB11. That was an open. James Cook, RB21. That's a close. Brian Robinson, RB27. As we talked about, very touchdown dependent, and that might not be enough. That's a close. Chuba Hubbard, a close at RB30. Hollywood Brown, the return of Kyler Murray. Keep that one open. Wide receiver 22. George Pickens, the production has fallen off a cliff recently. That's a close at wide receiver 34. And with the return of Justin Fields, DJ Moore stays open as wide receiver 25.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com. And I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched. Or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.